Welcome to She Said Homestead, the podcast that explores homesteading from a range of perspectives. We're Sage and Mickayla, two homesteaders, each with unique experiences, properties, and future goals for our homesteads. We're discussing various homesteading topics, sharing our personal experiences as women working full-time who are managing homesteads as well, and shining a light on the stories of other inspiring homesteaders.
Before we dive in, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. And if you enjoy our podcast, please consider leaving a review. It really helps us grow and share these homesteading stories with even more people.
Hey there guys, welcome back to the podcast. My name is Mickayla from Calico Cow Acres.
And I'm Sage from Terra Nova Acres, and we both have homesteads in Western North Carolina.
Today we are going to have a little bit less structured of an episode, and we are going to talk about a day in the life of us. But before we get into that, let's talk about what we've been doing the past week. Do you want to go first?
This week, I've been working on getting some plants in the garden and getting things mulched as I plant them this year instead of just bulk planting everything and then saying, oh shoot, everything's getting taken over by weeds, and then panic mulching. So I'm trying to do it a little bit more evenly, a little bit more spread out. So I got my tomatoes in the ground and peppers in the ground, which is odd for this time of year. Usually I'm not doing that for another couple weeks, but the lows are consistently in the 50s and the plants are big and I need more room under my grow lights. So I said, whatever, I'll just go ahead and plant them. And Athena immediately dug a tomato up because I planted them with eggs underneath them. I happened to have a whole bunch of eggs that were a little bit too old to really feel confident eating them. So I was like, whatever, I'll use them as tomato fertilizer. And so I planted like 60 something tomatoes with 60 something eggs underneath all of them, and trying to train Athena, trying to teach her the garden rules, that she walks in the pathways, not in the beds. She doesn't quite get it yet, and she gets very, very sad when I yell at her. So it's a whole process. But yeah, getting the garden going, and then also keeping an eye on the bees, because I just installed that package in my hives. I have to make sure that the queen is out, that she's doing her thing, that they're okay, that they have enough sugar water. So I actually opened it today to check on them. I did see the queen. I didn't see any eggs yet. They're just working on drawing a bunch of comb so far. And so I give them more sugar water, and I'll check them in like another week or so. But that's really it for the homesteading stuff. I've honestly been a little bit more social than normal in the last week, and so that's taken up my time, and also just cleaning the house. I am trying to get organized, because if I'm chaotic because of the garden and my house is a mess, then I am a mess. And I would very much like to try to avoid that this year.
Socializing during planting season is a bold move. I feel like nobody's going to see me for at least another month.
I know. And I usually hang out with Chrissy like once a week, but she knows in spring that if I don't reply to her texts, or if she doesn't see me for a couple weeks, that's normal. Yeah.
So you're teaching Athena garden rules. Are you teaching her sheep rules yet? Is she sheepdog yet?
She likes to hang out with them. She's getting to the point that she likes to hang out with the lambs in the morning. When I go to bottle feed them, that's her cue to like get excited and get in their paddock with them. And then she'll chill in there for half an hour, which is a lot more than she used to. And every now and then she'll like fall asleep up in the pasture, and I can kind of sneak back down to the house. But as soon as she wakes up and she notices that I'm not there, she runs back down to the house. So it's not perfect, but it's better than it was.
She's getting there.
Progress. But that's really it for me. What about you? What have you been up to this week?
I'm going to skip tonight's events because it was a lot. We're going to just pretend tonight didn't happen. This weekend, we had a plant sale that we went to. We kind of did some like local, we went out off the farm. I guess we've been socializing, but not really with people, just each other off the farm. We went and bought a few plants at our local community garden plant sale. It just like supports them and being able to buy seeds and stuff. And they donate all their food to like food pantries and whatnot. So we walked around the community garden, saw that for the first time, got some plants, planted some plants. We came home and basically just worked in the garden all weekend. I know I said I wasn't going to till at all this year, but the bigger patch areas, I call them patches. I don't know. They're like the pumpkin patch, the squash patch, if that makes sense. Those, I didn't have enough of our like foraged landscape tarp, silage tarp from the property. I didn't have enough of that to cover those over the winter. So they were just growing weeds like crazy, and I hadn't touched them since last year. And they needed to be dealt with because I need to plant things in them. So I wanted to get my corn planted, or at least start it. I started tilling the last two of them. One of them we turned into a Ruth Stout bed. The other part of the other one is going to be a Ruth Stout bed, but two of them are going to be like rows, like market garden style rows. So we got like the rest of those tilled up. I raked them all into rows. I got compost on them. Some of them needed a little extra topsoil because it's just solid clay, so it didn't till up super well in some parts. I mulched the pathways, and I got a 8-foot by like 4-row section planted with corn, just sweet corn. And I have it on my list in 10 days from now to do a second set of a different kind of corn. So I'm trying to like stagger them, but those are going to be pumpkins, squash, corn, and some melons maybe, and sunflowers. So it's just going to be like a big mixture of things. I hope it turns out better this year because I'm mulching it. Last year it was a struggle. The squash bugs and the vine borers and whatnot were horrible, but also the weeds kind of took over. So hopefully the mulch helps with the weeds and holding the water in, and hopefully the ducks will help with the bugs. That's the goal. But like that's pretty much all I've done. We've done garden things. I got a few of the plants planted that I got at the plant sale, and most of them have survived so far.
That's a lot.
I know. We've been bringing in strawberries. I picked my first pea today. Just a baby one. I couldn't resist. It was delicious.
That one pea was savored.
Yes, it was. Immediately. That's pretty much all I've been doing. Trying to like keep calm about garden things because all of my seedlings need to either get potted up or they need to go out. And at this point, I just want to put them out. But I haven't had time to just put them out. So I am stressed out about that.
Yeah. Now that I think about it, I've spent several hours this week blocking up or potting up seedlings. Forgot that I did that.
Put them outside. Just go put them right in the garden.
I don't know. A lot of them are flowers and the lambs are still there. And so it's like, I can't put them out, or I could put them out, but the lambs aren't fully trained to their new fence. So it would be a huge risk to put it out there. They might become sheep food.
I'm struggling with that with the ducks too. I don't know if it's bugs that are eating some of my stuff or if it's the ducks that are chewing on things, but I can't leave them locked in all day. They just go crazy. So I don't know. It's going to be a year of figuring things out yet again. I think that's it for my week. You want to start talking about a day in our lives?
Yeah. I feel like it's going to come off a whole lot more organized than my life really is.
I feel like we have kind of a standard routine, but, you know, there's wiggle room in it. Like, I have certain things that need to happen and everything else happens around them, but typically it's on a rotating schedule.
For me, I have how I would like things to be organized, and then that gets completely derailed by the things that absolutely have to get done, and then it all gets pushed around and messed up, and it's all go with the flow at the end of the week, honestly.
Same, but it's not for everything, and the only time things get out of order or messed up is obviously when I can't get to something or Taylor's tasks. I just like put them on random days and I'm like, you do these whenever you want to do them, but they're on these days, so just like move them around whenever you do them. So that's just like non-essential things. It's like vacuuming or cleaning the bathroom, because like I don't care when that gets done.
Well, how about we start with like a typical work day? Because both of us keep full-time jobs in addition to managing homesteads. So, what does your typical work day start like?
Okay, just to start this off, what, since we both have jobs that are in different time zones than we are, what time does your workday start? Not necessarily when you get up.
Yeah, so I generally try to start work at 9. Sometimes I'm logging on at 9:15, sometimes I'm logging on at 8:45. It's flexible, and it just depends. I am fortunate enough to have a job that they don't really care as long as you're available within business hours, whether I need to come in, an hour late, so I shift it from 10 to 4, sorry, 10 to 6 or whatever. It's generally flexible, but I tend to work 9 to 5.
Okay, me too. Everybody who I work with is in Central Time, so they go 8 to 4, I go 9 to 5, and it just works out well that way. I was just curious because I know your coworkers are like 2 hours behind, probably.
Yeah, so I work for a company based out of Colorado, so they're in Mountain Time, which is 2 hours behind me. But they are, for some reason, up inordinately early. And so when I'm on, most of them are on anyway. Um, I don't know why they do that, but yeah, especially just because my job, what the company does is based heavily around being outside doing environmental sampling, and inspections. It's just you get up early to get that stuff done, beat the heat kind of thing.
That makes sense. Just in case it's not clear, we both work from home, like online. We are virtual employees, so we can. I mean, I technically have set hours now, but I don't have to commute anywhere other than to my couch and or my office in my house. So just to clarify to anybody who doesn't know our stories or know us super well, we both work from home. But my goal is usually to wake up around 7 or 7:30. I'm not a morning person. I like to stay up late and do things if I have that option. I do best when I have 9 hours of sleep. Like, I have found my body thrives as much as it possibly can currently when I have 9 hours of sleep. So I try so hard to get up at 7 or 7:30, but more often than not, I sleep till 8, if I'm being completely honest. And then I kind of just get up with the cats and feed them immediately because they won't leave me alone until I do. I, get dressed, brush my teeth, those kinds of things, and I head right outside to release the ducks and the chicks from their little huts because they don't have automatic doors like our chickens do. And so I feel bad if I am inside existing awake without letting them out first. So I go out there and I let them out right away and I get everybody fed. I usually feed the ducks, feed the chickens, I collect duck eggs, and then I'll come in, drop all that stuff off, and then I fill up the bucket again with chick food and get that splashed with water to soak for a few minutes. Go out and I'll start harvesting like strawberries the last week, or hopefully in the next week it will be peas that I'm harvesting, or I just wander around the garden for a few minutes while their food soaks. Then I give it to them. Then I usually check for eggs. We don't usually have eggs like right away in the morning. I feel like we usually get more of our eggs in the afternoon, so I don't get most of them until night, but I always check, and then I'll just bring in whatever little harvest I've got and bring in my eggs. I don't do anything with the eggs right away because I'm usually on a time crunch in the morning, and that's kind of like my morning chores.
My morning is similar. So when I wake up and when I get up, two very different times. And it depends on when the sun rises. So the earlier the sun rises, the earlier I manage to actually get up out of bed. But I aim to wake up at 7:30. That never happens. I always hit snooze and stay in bed until at least 8, usually more like 8:15. it just I am also not a morning person, and it takes me a minute to get the motivation, but I have usually the three pets staring at me and whining at me to get fed. So that helps. That's a motivation to get going. So immediately first thing when I crawl out of bed, I am feeding the cat, I'm feeding both the dogs. And then once they're fed, once they're taken care of, I usually make myself a cup of coffee. I am very picky about my coffee. I make espresso. So I take the time to pull espresso shots, foam milk, and then I'm like, okay, now that I'm sipping on this, I can find the will to keep moving and take care of all the other animals. Right now, I am bottle feeding the lambs in the morning, which is another thing to get ready. So, getting the milk prepared, it's basically like powder that you pour in water, you shake it up, and then you pour it into the bottles. So, while I'm sipping on my coffee, I'm making that, and then I go outside, I bottle feed them, and then I fill up a bucket with chicken feed. I hike up to the pasture and feed the chickens and then also the turkeys. They eat the same food. Right now, I'm not usually having to feed hay to the sheep. So I have lambs and I have sheep, two different age groups. Right now, the sheep are on grass, and as long as I'm keeping them moving, if it's rainy or something and I can't move them and they've reasonably grazed everything that they have, then I'll feed them hay. So it kind of depends. So if I need to feed them hay, then I'll make another trip back down close to the house because I keep the hay in the barn close to the house and then hike all the way back up to the pasture and give them that. But normally it's just giving the chickens their food. And right now there's not really anything for me to peruse in the garden and harvest, but that will be changing soon.
Okay, so are you like a breakfast person? Do you eat breakfast?
Ooh, good question. Not usually. I like to have something, but I don't like it to be a meal. And the go-to kind of rotates. So when I finish my coffee right now, I like to have a banana, something that's kind of, enough sugar to get me going, but also not heavy is what I enjoy. Are you a breakfast person?
I am very, very much not a breakfast person, but like the last 3 weeks, I've been forcing myself to eat breakfast. And I've been so much hungrier, just in general. It's ridiculous. I wake up and I'm hungry, and that's never been something I've experienced in my entire life, which is so weird. I've never liked breakfast other than maybe cereal as a kid. When I get inside, after I do all the animal chores, I make myself eat something before I have coffee. So, like, my coffee is my reward for both doing my chores and also eating. Like, I make myself wait for it. Don't enjoy that. I've been trying to have something like high protein for breakfast time, so I'll do either just like plain cottage cheese or cottage cheese with fruit like peaches or cottage cheese eggs. Like I like cottage cheese a lot, but it's just really high protein. So I'll do something like that and then I have my coffee and then when my coffee is done, I'll do a smoothie with banana, strawberry, a vanilla yogurt and collagen and that kind of tides me over till lunch. I usually have that. I drink my coffee when I start work, like when I sit down to work. And then as soon as my coffee's done at like 9:15, 9:30, I'll have a smoothie. So that keeps me full until lunch. And I'm liking that. I feel like my body does better now that I'm kind of getting into that routine. So that's a new thing for me. I didn't usually have breakfast in the past. Sometimes in the morning, I throw laundry in with good intentions to remember to switch it over throughout the day. That doesn't always happen. And usually, when I sit down with a coffee before I start work, I look at my Asana board, which is how I organize our entire life. And that's the only thing that keeps me sane. I literally have probably 15 or more like category boards of tasks that we have for future, for this week, for next week, for like 5 years from now. stuff that's not scheduled, just ideas. And yeah, it's lists and lists and lists, and it helps keep me organized. And then I start work, and I work all day.
So when I get back inside from feeding everybody, that's when I have my snack, breakfast, whatever, and then I'll hop online and figure out what I need to get done for the day for work. Do that until 5, 5:30, sometimes even 6, and then change gears and then go back outside to get more homestead stuff done.
Do you do like lunch and stuff, or do you do any homestead things at work or at not at work at lunchtime?
No, I usually don't break for lunch. I usually would just rather like eat in front of my computer and get done earlier than take that break and come back. I don't know. Sometimes if I need like a screen break or I need to just get my blood moving, I'll walk out the door and go see what the animals are doing or check on some plants. But it's not a significant break and it's not a super routine thing for me. It's just when I need to.
I usually Ricky is in and out all day because he comes back in for snacks, and I have to be careful when I say that word because there's cats around and they'll freak out. Um, he comes back in constantly for just to cool down if it's hot outside, and water, and for food. So I'm in and out all day, just letting him in. When he wants to come in, he hops up in my office window and he'll just like stare at me through the screen, and it's really, or yeah, the window screen. And it's really funny the face he makes because he tries to like go under the screen, but it's still there when he dips down, and it's hilarious. But whenever I let him back out, I'll usually walk back out. I check on the ducks because they're usually free ranging, so I usually get a few minutes like spread out throughout the day in going outside and wandering around just to like check on things, make sure everybody's good, make sure everybody has water. The chicks knock their water over constantly, so I'm always like nervous that things are going wrong while I'm forced to sit in here. I also eat my lunch in front of the computer because I don't know. I'll either like put a YouTube video on while I'm eating lunch and continue to work, but just like have it as background noise, or I don't know. I just keep working. I do the same thing.
What about once you're done with work? What's the first thing that you go and do?
That depends on the day. So usually when I'm finishing up work at about 5, Taylor's usually getting home around 4:45 or 5, depending on the day. He's got like a 45-minute commute, but he leaves for work earlier than me, or earlier than I get up even. So he leaves early from work too. So we wrap up work basically at the same time, and depending on the evening, we'll work on outside projects, do quick projects in the garden, or if I'm making dinner, that usually eats up at least an hour of my evening, and I try to get that started right away because at 5, then if it takes an hour or a little bit longer and I'm, getting distracted with things in the meantime, it ends up being like 7:30 before we eat. So, yeah, I don't really get much done on weeknights, unfortunately. I feel like I'm either doing quick little tasks outside, making dinner, or I'm editing something, whether it's a podcast episode or a YouTube video.
For me, I close my computer and I'm like, oh my gosh, just get me outside, get me moving. I need something different. Sitting still and staring at a computer screen for that long is not an easy thing to do. At least for me. But yeah, I pretty much beeline it for the pasture and then I'll kind of take stock of what needs to be done. So I know a lot of people tend to move their or who have, mobile animal setups tend to move their animals in the mornings and do, water chores and stuff like that in the morning, but because I'm not a morning person and it's not easy for me to wake up early and do those things, it's just easier for me to do it in the evenings. So I'll check everyone's water, I'll get them fresh water if they need it. If, the chickens need to be moved, then I'll move them. And I also find that easier because they're gonna go back to their coop to roost. So it's not like if I tried to move them in the morning and bribe them with food, if one or two stragglers, rebels, whatever, go do their own thing, then they're out for the whole day. But all of them are going to come back to roost at night. And so it's easier for me, for my rhythm, for various reasons, to move animals in the evening. So if that needs to be done, I'll do it. That's not an everyday. Some days it feels like everything needs to be done, and some days nothing really needs to be done for them. It totally depends. I'll usually end up moving the sheep once per the work week, and the chickens once or twice per the work week, and then again once on the weekends, so twice a week total. But obviously, it's easier to find time on the weekends than it is the weekdays.
Honestly, in my opinion, for all of the animal chores in general, I think it's easier to find time to do the things in the evening or weekends when we're working 9 to 5. I am not getting up earlier. I'm not getting up at 6. I'm not getting up at 5. It's just not happening. I just can't do it. Even if I wanted to, I don't think I could physically handle that. And at least for me, doing animal projects in the evening, whether it's cleaning out coops or filling up the duck pool, I guess moving the chickens around. I do move the little chick tractor around in the morning because it takes me 3 minutes to like do all of the chick chores because I just have to like pick it up and move it. They don't have a fence around it. So I do that in the morning, but everything else, Taylor's here at night to help me. And so it goes a lot faster when we can work on whatever is needed together really quick instead of me trying to tackle it in the 20 minutes I have before I start work in the morning. I would much rather do chores at night.
Yeah, and so once I make sure that everyone has what they need, then I can switch gears to, okay, what do I have time to get done? What are the little tasks? Nothing that's going to take longer than an hour, really. I can't commit to the larger projects in the evening during the work week. But, stuff like what needs to be transplanted, what needs to be mulched, what needs to be weeded, what needs to be fixed, like just the general maintenance stuff. Turning compost, like those weird oddity, keep things moving tasks that aren't going to take too long. And getting those done during the week frees me up to tackle the bigger stuff on the weekends. So it is important that I do what I can, which isn't all the time, but do what I can to keep that stuff moving, to get that stuff done during the week.
I'm right there with you. Like, it's literally just the tiniest, randomest things I can find to do. Sometimes it's just wandering around the garden and like decompressing from the day. Honestly, once I start watering my garden for the season, watering the garden takes an hour. Like, it takes so long. So that's usually like my task most of the week if I get time outside during the garden season, which hopefully the mulch will help a little bit with this, but I'm watering the garden and that is a task. Dragging that hose all over the place is a task.
I am a little bit ruthless with my garden and watering. I really don't do it. I will water them in for like the week after I transplanted. And that's pretty much it. If they're not on board, get out of here. And because I mulch and because I live where I do, because we get rain, I have the luxury of being able to do that. I would be very strapped for time if I had to water my garden multiple times per week.
So I don't know if it's just that my soil isn't quite to that point yet. At least it wasn't last year. The plants, if I didn't water them every other day, every few days, it was rough. Like, they were struggling. So I try to be really good about it. We do have a sprinkler, but honestly, moving the sprinkler around is much more of a pain in the butt to me than just watering it by hand with the shower attachment. So I just do it by hand. It's kind of like Zen time for me. I get to just stand out there and look at my garden while I water it, and I don't mind that, even though I'm like wasting time kind of. I enjoy it. So it's decompressing. That's part of my decompressing. I feel like there has to be other things that I do at night, but I just can't think of them right now because they're all just really random things. We usually stay outside doing things until it's like dark out, and then we eat dinner. Unless I'm making dinner. Dinner usually is pretty late for us. So we'll eat anywhere from like 7:30 to 9:30 depending on the day.
I do the same thing. I stay out until it's starting to really get dark. Some of the last tasks that I do are just collecting eggs right before the chickens go to bed. And right now I'm bottle feeding the lambs again. That'll last for another few weeks right now. And then I'm putting the lambs up. They go away into a shelter at night because they're tiny and they're more prone to predators, whereas the sheep, are up in the pasture. They're double electric fenced in right now, and that's their protection. After that, I'm like sitting down, like, oh my God, I'm so tired. I just busted my butt for like 2, 3 hours. And then that's when I start to think about dinner. And then the thought process is usually, oh my God, I have to eat dinner. I'm so hungry. I don't want to make anything. What do I do? Because in my current setup, I don't set aside time to meal prep, which is not great. I used to do that and it was amazing and I ate way better. But right now it's just scrounging around in my fridge for the steak or chicken that I have and then whatever veggies, probably putting it together in a stir fry. Or if I really don't have the energy, I'm just pulling some frozen pasta out of the freezer, chopping up some onion, taking some tomato, throwing it in there with some pesto, which is what I had for dinner tonight.
I'm actually pretty good about meal prepping. Not necessarily meal prepping, but I'll do. So we can talk about this, but like Sundays is my meal prep day, and then I cook dinner Monday night and Thursday night. So we eat dinner Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then Thursday I cook. We eat that dinner Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then Sunday we usually do pizza night, or we'll have extra leftovers, or kind of just scrounge. That kind of gives us a buffer day in case we want to go out to eat for some reason, or we don't feel like reheating our leftovers Saturday and we'll get Domino's and then eat that dinner on Sunday, whatever. I'm pretty good about it. So I only have to cook 2 to 3 times a week, and it's like pre-planned. I already have everything ready to go. But it's still, since I'm usually making something for Taylor separately from what I'm making for myself, because I'll make like a meat version of something and a not meat version of something for both of us, and that takes a little bit longer usually. So I really try to be diligent about making sure I have meals figured out, because hungry Mickayla is not a happy Mickayla.
Same. I get very, very hangry when my blood sugar is low, or I'm just not functional and I'm a complete space cadet. My brain doesn't work.
Yeah. I'll get to the point where I'm like physically shaking and I'm like, why did I do this to myself? Like, that's how hungry I get. So I really try to be very good about meals. I prioritize that a lot. But we do eat very late in the evening usually, just because we are also prioritizing getting projects done. So by that time I'm pretty starving. But I try to like combat that with eating a later lunch. Like, I won't eat lunch until 1 or 2 p.m. sometimes, just to balance that out.
Yeah, I am usually hungry by lunchtime, so I'm eating at lunchtime, but then I'm having like a snack right before I go outside and do whatever for multiple hours. And then I'll come in and eat dinner. My ideal dinner time is really like 7:38, but I do not eat dinner then in the spring and the summer. I do in the winter because it's dark and I'm forced inside anyway, but in that busy season, I am typically eating dinner at like 9 o'clock, which is, I don't like it, but it's
It
just
works.
what life is for me right now.
At least you're eating something. That's what, like, I don't mind eating a late dinner. I like eating around 7 usually if I can, but sometimes even after we record the podcast, I'm eating at like 10:30, and at least I have food in me. Like, that's that's the goal, right? Do you do much after you eat dinner? Do you just like chill the rest of the night? Do you work on computer stuff?
Do I chill the rest of the night? No, there's still so much else to do. So I'm very, I'll call it selfish with the time when the sun is up. If the sun is up and I'm not working, obviously, I am getting stuff done outside. I am outside. And so once I come inside, once I make dinner, once I eat dinner, then, sometimes with that, however much time it is, a couple hours maybe, that's when, the normal house chores and those sorts of things have to be done. But also, if it's seedling season like it is right now, it's when I'm starting seeds or blocking up seedlings that need more space or watering everything because I got to check everything every day to make sure I'm not killing things because they're all on different watering schedules based on when they needed it last and what size soil block they're in and all that shenanigans. And I kind of have a general schedule for, the weekdays of what I'm aiming to do. So usually Monday is when I'm editing like my YouTube videos for Terra Nova Acres. Usually because I've recorded it on a weekend, and then Monday is when I have time to do it. Tuesdays usually I'm editing content for the podcast, or I'm doing various like seed starting projects, food preservation projects, whatever needs to be done that can be done inside and doesn't take sunlight to do. Wednesday, we record this podcast. That's what I do in the evenings. Thursday is usually like my big batch of dishes for the week because the stuff accumulates. I'll do little things here and there, but if I don't set aside time to like really just like do all the dishes I can find, just grab them, put them in the sink, clean them, then it doesn't get done because I don't have a dishwasher. I am the dishwasher.
Mm-hmm.
And then Friday is just general like picking up the house, cleaning things because I have 3 pets and I have long hair. So you can only imagine
Oh, I can
how
imagine.
much hair fluff there is around. Never mind everything I track in on my boots and things running through the house and what the pets track in and everything else. So lots of sweeping, lots of vacuuming, lots of picking up random stuff that I've strewn across the house for the whole week.
I don't have like specific cleaning days. Like I said, so with having strict hours again for work, I have kind of pushed specific tasks onto Taylor where I'm like, okay, I need you to do these things because there's no possible way that I can try and get them done now that I don't have flexible hours. So he usually vacuums the house once a week, and that's also necessary because we have 4 cats in here and me, and I shed more than the cats do, and the cats shed a lot. It's just a very furry house. So constantly needing to vacuum, but we do it about once a week if we have time. We are not perfect with it. I try so hard to be a clean person, but in this house, it gets so dirty so fast. We don't even have floors. So like the subfloor gets really dirty really quickly, and we've got like spiders and the stink bugs that are down here, and like they'll be in our basement and they'll come up through the floor and stuff. So it's just a mess sometimes. So he usually does the vacuuming. I try and have him clean the bathroom at least once every other week, if not once every week. And like those are his tasks, and then he'll try to do dishes at least once or twice a week for me, and then he'll help with like folding laundry and things like that. I usually start laundry during the week. He usually starts it on the weekend, and we kind of just either pick it out of the basket or I'll try and do that before we record the podcast because that's like an easy task that I can do in like a half hour. But Mondays, like I said, I cook dinner. Thursdays, I cook dinner. Tuesday is usually not a recording. It's a editing night for me. So sometimes Monday nights will be that too. Like Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday are like my YouTube or podcast editing nights. And then Friday is kind of more chill. I feel like after we eat dinner, I don't really try to do any big projects, but I will get back on the computer and do editing, or I'll like try and clean up the kitchen, do dishes, things like that. Some nights I stay up really late and I'll stay up till like 2 editing something, just trying to get it done so I don't have to do it the next night. That happens at least once a week probably. But usually like after dinner time, which is late, until like 10 or 10:30. We're just sitting on the couch, like watching TV, watching a movie, and I'm usually working on something on the computer while we just kind of hang out with the kitties. And then we go out right before bed. We put the ducks away. We put the chicks away because the chicks will go into their house, but their door doesn't close on its own. And the ducks, they'll just sit out in their run all night if we let them. So we have to kind of like usher them into their little hut and close the door so they're safe for the night. Then we always collect eggs at night at like 10:30 p.m. I bring a basket out there with a flashlight. We collect eggs because then I know they're all going to be in there. It will be fresh for the morning, and I'll know, like, I'll be able to keep track of which days which eggs are from to sell them. So I know I'm selling the oldest ones first. And then we kind of like come in, feed the kitties, brush our teeth. We usually do we do playtime and brushes with the kitties every single night before bed for like 10 minutes because I feel like they don't get enough attention and it makes me feel bad. So I have like extra hairbrushes that are old and they love them. So they will all four come into this specific room and we'll do brushes, like a little car wash. Like they stand in line and wait. It's so cute.
That's adorable.
It is. They love it. They seriously sit there and wait. That's my nights.
That's really cute. I feel like my normal bedtime is generally midnight. By midnight, I am in bed. But again, it's a different question of when I'm in bed and when I fall asleep. Some nights it takes me a couple hours to go to sleep, and some nights I'm exhausted and it doesn't take long at all, but it's usually the former, not the latter. So I usually end up getting, I don't know, 7-ish hours of sleep. I don't think that's ideal for me. I also think I do better with 9, but that's just not what's feasible in this season of my life, and that's okay.
We're on a man's schedule, but we're in women's bodies. Typically, women need more sleep than men, especially when you're like on your period or something, you need more sleep. I do best with 9 hours. Honestly, 9 to 10 hours is ideal, but 9 hours is good. Okay, so when you lay down in bed, are you like doom scrolling? Are you staring into the abyss of the darkness? Are you reading? What are you doing? Like, what are you doing from going to bed and falling asleep?
Yeah, so that's a great question. It depends. So sometimes I have content that I'm trying to get up, on Instagram or TikTok, like different platforms have different ideal times to post things.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes I'm scrambling to post something on TikTok because I know that if I post it about this time, then it's going to be more likely to get this engagement, or like if I post it super late on Instagram, then people are going to see it as soon as they wake up in the morning and they check their feed. So sometimes it's posting content because, that is an aspect of our lives. We are content creators. We both have our own individual platforms, then we have this podcast. So sometimes it's that. And then sometimes it's my, like, I don't know what the right word is, but like my revenge time to just like have to myself, and I'm like, I'm just gonna doom scroll and like have this time because I feel like I've had no time for myself today, which doesn't ultimately serve me, but habits die hard. It's a lot of consuming content, but sometimes it's also posting content.
So Taylor usually gets up so much earlier than me. Like his alarms start going off at like 5:40 or something, but he usually gets up and he's up.
I would throw it out the window.
I know. It
Mm-mm-mm.
doesn't usually wake me up, surprisingly. That's usually once I've actually fallen asleep. I'm not a good sleeper. I am a very bad sleeper. So by that time in the morning is when I'm usually sleeping well and I don't hear them. But he doesn't get up and leave until almost 7, usually, like 6:45, 7. He's gone, maybe 6:30, I don't know. I'm asleep. I don't know. He tries to go to bed as soon as we get in bed. Like, he tries to go to sleep. So that kind of limits my scrolling. I will lay there for a little while after he tries to go to sleep which it doesn't really bother him that much. He can be snoring within 3 minutes of falling asleep. Honestly, he's such a good sleeper. It makes me jealous. I can't do that. And so I'll lay there on my phone for a little while, doing the same things that you're doing, basically. Either just like taking that time to just exist in my own brain for a little while and not think about anything that I need to do, just kind of like scrolling mindlessly. Honestly, don't think that's a bad thing. Like, it turns my brain off for a little bit, which my brain never turns off. And then I will just try and go to sleep. So we usually try and get to bed between 10 and 11, and ideally 10, but it usually ends up being 11. And I'm typically asleep before midnight. I have a hard time falling asleep. Like I said, my brain doesn't turn off very easily. I literally am the kind of person where even in my dreams, I am thinking. Like, I lucid dream. Like, it's insane. My brain never turns off. I will wake up in the middle of the night and I'm like, I have 17 things I need to do tomorrow and I have to pee right now. Like, that happens almost every single night.
Yeah, I guess an important distinction for people who don't know us particularly well, if this is the first time you're engaging with our episodes or what have you. I don't live with anyone. It's just me. It's just me at the homestead. I don't have to deal with anybody. Whereas Mickayla, you have a husband, and so you're sharing all this stuff with him, but also working around his schedule and compromising, finding what works for both of you guys. So in some ways, I get to be selfish, and in some ways, I'm like, this would be so much easier if I had help. But yeah, I've had partners their alarms went off super early. There is nothing that irritates me more than that, especially when it wakes me up, but not them. Oh, I get mad.
Honestly, it's kind of funny because even though I have a tailor, we have very similar routines. Like, your morning routine, waking up and you're like, oh yeah, I get up at like 8 or 8:15, like laying in bed for a little bit. That's pretty much my exact routine. Like, we have very similar routines. I think that's funny. We live very similar
I think we're pretty similar people, to be honest.
I love it. That covers my weekdays.
Yeah, so how is your weekend, specifically, let's start with Saturday. How is your Saturday different from a work weekday?
I sleep in. As much as my cats will let me, I sleep in. So I don't set an alarm usually on weekends. I let Taylor set his alarm to whenever he thinks he's going to wake up, and then it's usually not super early. It wakes me up, but he'll turn it off, and then I usually get up first, and he'll lay there for a while. I feed the kitties and like get coffee going in the big coffee pot because it takes longer than the French press that I usually make. And I just kind of get things going, and then by the time the coffee starts smelling good, he usually gets up, and then we'll go do birds together. And that helps me a lot because it's like 5 days a week I have to do the bird chores all by myself, and it takes me a solid half hour to an hour. And that's not even like, well, that's including me walking around the garden a little bit, but that's not even cleaning out their coops or anything. So that's just watering them, feeding them, whatever. On the weekends, I'm like, I am not doing this alone. We're doing this together. So I refuse to go out there on the weekends unless he's awake. Like, I make him do it with me, and it's kind of fun to do it together. I'll grab the basket, he grabs the buckets, and then I just get to collect eggs while he feeds the birds and stuff. So that looks different. We're a little bit slower about it. Usually we'll wander around the garden for a little bit, and then we'll go get coffee. We'll sit on the porch, the front porch usually, for a little while we drink coffee. And then we kind of just hang out, talk, watch the ducks wandering around the front yard. And then I'll usually go in and I'll make something quick for breakfast. Like, I'll make a quick breakfast hash, or I'll make eggs and like hash browns or something. And then sometimes we'll sit on the porch, eat that. Sometimes we sit inside and eat that. And we just kind of talk about like what the game plan for the day is, because Saturday is like our only day that it's like work on a project, focus on one project, do it, and film it. So we have to like have our shit together. Like, we have to know what we're doing that day, or else nothing's happening. that usually ends up being like planning groceries for the next week, making a grocery list, meal plan, that kind of stuff. And also if we need to go get like if we need to go to Lowe's or Tractor Supply or anything to get supplies for a project or just general animal supplies and things like that. That's pretty much usually our morning, and then like it leads into the rest of the day. But I'll stop and let you talk.
I don't feel like my Saturday's all that different. So I don't really sleep in. I think if I had a partner, I probably would sleep in, but I don't. I still get up about the same time. I don't move with the same sense of urgency because it's not like I'm trying to log onto a computer right at 9. Still wake up, feed all the pets, make my coffee, bottle feed the lambs, bring the chickens their grain. And I don't have any chicks or anything right now, but in some spring seasons I have a brooder full of chicks and also a chicken tractor with meat birds in it. So sometimes it's a lot of animals to feed, but I don't have that right now. For the rest of the morning, honestly, I usually take my Saturday late mornings to do chores. Part of that is because the feed store that I go to is local, and so it's not open, super late or anything. And so Saturday morning-ish, early afternoon-ish is the most convenient time for me to pop over there. And then while I'm out, I'm like, well, I might as well stop by the local plant nurseries and see, what they have a deal on or what they have in their clearance section or whatever else. And then inevitably, that turns into if I need to stop by the hardware store and pick something up, then it just makes sense for me to do that now. The one thing I don't do is my grocery shopping because I haven't stopped and taken stock and figured out what I actually need. And usually by the time that I finish the random errands, I'm sick of honestly being out in public and I just want to go home. So grocery shopping errand is totally separate from that. But yeah, any of the miscellaneous stuff that I need to get done that I don't have time to just do during the rest of the week, get that done and out of the way. Saturday late morning, early afternoon.
Sleeping in for me on weekends is like 9:30. That's when my body naturally wakes up because we usually go to bed later on Friday night. We'll go to bed at like midnight or 12:30 sometimes. So it's still like a solid 9 hours, and my body always feels good Saturday morning. And then Sunday morning, my body's always like, what did you do to me yesterday? Because it's usually like manual labor in the garden. But yeah, we do kind of like running around. We don't do groceries Saturday morning usually. We do any other kind of running around to be able to film and get projects done that day. We'll get home from going to Lowe's and for the first time usually. And whatever we had to do, and we'll either start working on the project or we'll do lunch really quick. And for lunch we usually do something light if we do lunch at all. Sometimes it's just a snack, sometimes it's just a smoothie. And then we just work on projects the rest of the day, honestly. Like it's usually our bigger projects or projects that Taylor needs to spend more time on that I really can't do by myself, that I don't know how to use like the tools to do them. So like hooking up the gutter like the last couple weekends and the IBC tote. What other projects? Building the little duck coop. Any building projects, any garden projects, like bigger garden projects where we're mulching or trying to do a bunch of weeding, bunch of planting, anything like that that I can film all in one day, that's what we're doing. We used to film on weeknights too, and I just can't. Like, it's too much to try and compile a week's worth of footage in one video, editing time wise. I like those kinds of videos where it shows our full week, but it's just too much. So we started only filming on Saturdays and sometimes Sundays, depending on how much we get done on Saturday.
Saturdays, I try to keep for some of the bigger projects that I don't have time to tackle during the week. Now, each year, those projects evolve. The first year that I was here, there was a lot of building animal structures and just like so many building the homestead things that need to get done. Now that I'm going into my third year, there aren't as many of those. I've got my perimeter fence set up. I have coops for my chickens. I have a chicken tractor. I have the sheep shelter. I have the things for the most part. And so honestly, I'm kind of feeling like I have more time to do the fun stuff, like build garden beds and stuff like that, which is what I've been doing leading up to this spring. So that's fun, and that's evolving just the longer that I'm here. But right now, the effort is mostly gardening. It's transplanting seedlings, it's mulching, it's picking up new animals, going to get the sheep or the puppy or whatever. When I have meat birds, butchering, is a weekend activity because it takes all day. Or burning brush piles that are left over from winter that I just need out of the way. That's not something that I want to start at 6 p.m., on a weekday. That's a weekend activity, so that I can feed it and watch it and make sure it doesn't get out of control. And then the other big task that becomes a weekly thing when the vegetation is growing is walking that perimeter electric fence around the pasture. One, to make sure that there's no limbs sitting on it. Two, to make sure that it's all, sitting correctly, that if a tree fell on top of it, it might have knocked a T-post out of placement. So if anything needs to be fixed, which is not usual, but you just never know. So those things could ground it out, which would be the issue. And then the third thing is string trimming it to make sure that the grass isn't growing up onto it, and also grounding it out. That ends up taking a lot of my time. That's more like a summer thing, but it's that season, and I'm realizing that I need to put that on my to-do list for this weekend.
I was just going to say, I think that right now our focus is on outside projects in the garden and things like that. But come summer, I'm kind of hoping to shift more. And when I say summer, I mean like the really, really hot days of summer. I'm hoping to shift more towards potentially working on inside projects again, because being out in the heat in North Carolina at like 3 p.m. when it's like full sun is really, really difficult on my body when I'm out there the entire day. So I'm really hoping that maybe we can start working on our drywall again and potentially get floors at some point. We have a whole bunch of projects that have to go in a specific order. I'm hoping we can start working on those again once summer rolls around. But for now, it's mostly outside focused projects, like you said, too. And we are doing clearing and things like that as well. But the garden's the main focus. Okay, so how late do you stay out there on Saturdays working on things?
On Saturdays, so usually I'll come back from my errands, and that's when it's really hot. And so I don't want to get started on those projects. Every now and then I'll have a Saturday where I didn't need to run errands. So I can do, a morning project like maintain the perimeter fence in the morning. But then I'm still taking a break because it's just bad news to be outside in, high 80s, 90-degree weather, sun beating down on you. It's not fun. And then it drains your ability to work for the rest of the day. So yeah, I'm keeping busy inside or just actually resting because it's the weekend and that's what I should be using it for, right? But then once it cools back down, but it's still hot. Cools down is a relative term. Getting back outside, doing more of those maintenance things. And then from, 3 whatever to right now like 8:30, I'm outside. But that evening block, either Saturday or Sunday, I'm trying to record some sort of YouTube video. It doesn't happen every week. Like right now, I'm super busy with the garden and it just needs to get done. And the easiest thing to take off of my list is content. So when it needs to go, it goes, and I don't worry about it.
On Saturday evenings, we usually are out working from usually around noon or 1 until maybe 7 or 8, depending on the day. Then we usually have dinner. It's supposed to be leftovers, but I will say if there's any night we are going to impulse go out to eat to the Mexican restaurant or get Domino's, it's Saturday, because That's usually the day where, like you said, being out in the heat is absolutely miserable, especially for that long. And where I get inside and I crash on the couch. I'm one absolutely disgusting because I'm covered in dirt and sweat and yeah, it's just gross. And I physically can't get up because my feet hurt and my body hurts so bad usually. So I just like lay down, and if it gets to be 9 or 10, I'm like, I don't think I can even microwave my dinner tonight. We will get Domino's. But I still at least try to take my footage from the camera on the SD card, put it on my computer or my external hard drive, clear out the card so it's free for the next week, for tomorrow if I'm filming the next day. And sometimes I'll have the energy to sit there and start working on editing the video. Sometimes we just crash and watch a movie. We also try and go get groceries before I crash on the couch. Like Saturday night is our grocery night. So like I will walk through the store and I'm just like covered in dirt. Like I literally go to the store. So gross. I hope nobody ever recognizes me. But I'm like, we have to get groceries tonight because I need to wake up tomorrow and meal prep all day. That's pretty much what Saturday looks like for us.
I do the same thing when I go to the grocery store. It's not until I have hopped out of my car and I'm in the parking lot walking into the store that I'm like, oh, I have so much dirt under my fingernails. My feet are so dirty because I've been walking around barefoot in the garden all day and I'm wearing sandals because, of course, I'm wearing sandals. There are rules to be socially acceptable, and I am not following them right now. And I also don't care.
I could care less. If somebody ever comments on like how
Yes.
I look, I'm gonna be like, okay, just go watch my YouTube video next weekend and you'll see why I look like this.
But I also feel like to some degree, in the towns that we live in, people kind of get it. I mean, maybe not so much for me because I kind of go closer to Asheville, not farther away to go grocery shopping. But for, to some level, I feel like people are like, oh yeah, you were in the
Going,
garden working all day. Okay.
that's
I
how I
respect that.
feel going to Lowe's or Tractor Supply, but going to like Ingles or something, I'm like, these little old ladies are looking at me weird. Like a Saturday night when we go to the grocery store, everybody's like going to church, and I'm like going to the grocery store and I look disgusting. And it's fine, whatever, I don't care. That's when I get to the grocery store. That's when it happens, and that's when it has to happen. It is what it is.
Yeah, for me, Saturday nights are I either have like social plans or it's just an overflow day for whatever I didn't get done during the week that needs to get done inside. Probably cleaning something because that's the first thing that I'll push. I'll take care of my seedlings before I vacuum the house, that's for sure.
Those definitely take priority. I don't ever have social plans unless they're with you, so.
I mean, it's pretty much just Chrissy. Like that's
Yeah.
the only person that I will really make time for. So,
Do Sundays look similar to Saturdays for you then?
yeah, I would say Sunday mornings, I'm definitely not running errands. Partially because the feed store that I go to is closed and the local nursery that I go to is closed. So part of that is not my choice. But Sunday morning, I'll usually, meander around the front yard and with my coffee in hand and look at things and be like, what do I want this to look like a year from now? Or what should I put here? Or, you know, just the creative brainstorming
Mm-hmm.
process is usually what I'm doing on Sunday mornings. And then also washing the eggs from the last week and then stocking the stand in my front yard. Because if I don't do that on the weekends, it's chaos for some reason for me to try to get it done during the week. And then I have people stopping by, and then they knock on my door asking if I have eggs, and then it's a whole thing. They text me, and then I get overwhelmed. I can't handle it. It sounds so simple, but it derails me in a way that I can't put words to.
I have the same problem where people text me and they all are asking me to save eggs, like a specific number of eggs for them for the next couple days. And I'm like, I have this many eggs. If you come tomorrow, I don't know how many there are going to be. So come soon or they're going to be gone. Because I have 10 other people texting me right now.
My intent with that stand in the front yard was for it to be first come, first serve. Like, when I have eggs out there, I have eggs out there. When I don't, I don't. But that's not how it's evolved. Because, well, for one, I like to meet the people who are out there, and there are like regulars who will come by, and we do have each other's numbers, and so they will text me like, "Hey, do you have eggs right now? How many eggs do you have right now? Are they out in the stand?"
Yeah. You've
It's
created
stressful.
your nightmare.
It becomes very stressful.
I did the same thing myself.
Kind of defeats the purpose of having that stand out in the front yard, but I still appreciate them if you're listening.
So Sunday mornings look the same for me as Saturday mornings. I would say they're even slower. Like, we kind of get going a little bit slower. We also, this is so weird. I feel like we have such similar lives. We also tend to wander around the orchard and the garden and the property with our coffees on Sunday morning more than just sitting on the porch. I don't know what it is. It's just a Sunday thing. It's like, I don't have to rush into anything. We don't have to go to Lowe's today. Just like walk around with my little bougie coffee cup and my fancy coffee and look at my plants. Because what else would I rather be doing? But yeah, they look pretty much the same. Like, we do coffee and then we'll try and do breakfast. And then usually right after breakfast, I will do dishes because at that point in the week, there are usually a bunch of dishes. And I know I have to spend a lot of time meal prepping that day. And if I don't do dishes beforehand, it's not going to end well. And my week is going to start badly. If I will just have a whole kitchen full of dishes. So like, I need to get them done. So like, we do our little morning routine. I do dishes. And then I usually get right into meal prepping. And Taylor will go either work on another small project or he will start doing clearing. He'll keep filming a video if we didn't finish it the day before. Or he will just do like the bird chores. So he usually does the duck pool on Sundays. He cleans out the chicken coop on Sundays and the duck coop on Sundays and just kind of like does all of the animal chores that day while I'm meal prepping all of our food for the week. So it works out well, especially going into summer where it's nice and cool inside, except for when I have to run the oven. It works out in my favor. But it is usually, honestly, a full day of cooking for me. Like, it's at least usually 5 hours of cooking, meal prepping. I usually am doing like any sort of fruit prep for breakfast things. I'm making Taylor breakfast. Sometimes I make it for both of us, whatever he's having. I don't like to have a big breakfast, so I usually do something a little bit different that I don't have to prep. And then I'm making him a lunch. I'm making me lunches, and then I usually make whatever dessert is for that week if we're having dessert. And I will try and get as much prepped for the dinner on Monday as I can. And then I also am usually making like pizza dough if we don't have like homemade frozen pizzas or whatever we're going to kind of scrounge together for that night. That's usually my entire Sunday.
On Sundays, I wish I meal prepped, but I don't. I don't have my stuff that together. It's one of several things. I'm either continuing the bigger project that I started on Saturday and didn't finish, or doing a completely different bigger project that I can't get done during the week. I do tend to move animals on Sunday so that I'm, prepared for the work week and I can put that off as long as I can manage, not making myself fit that into the end of a work week day any more than I absolutely need to. Now that I have the bees and I'm a new beekeeper, they're a new colony, and so I try to go in there once a week. Sundays are a good day to do that. So that's like midday, between like noon and 2 is when I'm trying to do that. Poke my head in there, make sure they're all doing good, keep an eye on brood, keep an eye on honey flow, keep an eye on all these different things. Dump my compost bucket out for the week so that it doesn't go stale on my porch, which it's a week old. It's already kind of stale on my porch. And then if I didn't get to filming a video on Saturday, trying to get to filming a video on Sunday. And then in the evening is when I go to the grocery store. The sun setting is usually my cue to be like, oh shoot, right, I need to go get groceries. And it's setting later now, so I tend to run in there like 15 minutes before they close, and then I rush around and I feel really bad. I don't have much to buy from the grocery store these days, so that helps, but still, just panic grocery shopping very quickly, and then getting everything in my car, getting it back home. And I don't usually do any big, chores or project inside on Sunday nights. Usually I'm just trying to chill out and mentally prepare for a whole nother week of doing it all over again.
I think I have 4 compost bowls on my porch right now.
I just started keeping a 5-gallon bucket, food grade bucket out there. I was like, I'm done with these compost bowls. It's way too far away. I'm filling up these bowls and then it's just more of a mess. So I'm just gonna graduate to a bucket and it works great.
I
I
would
think.
I think I would fill a bucket within like 3 days. Like we have so much compost. It's ridiculous. I do. You mentioned cleaning eggs and like prepping them for the week. I do that on Sunday too. That's like my Sunday evening task. And then I try and make sure that like the feedback or the feed totes are filled so that I can, because I soak their feed every night. That's something that I didn't mention in our weekday. After we go put the ducks and the chicks in at night and get eggs, I soak feed. Like I measure out into like the separate buckets and I make sure it's all soaked and ready for morning so I don't have to worry about that in the morning. So I do that on Sunday nights too. I pack up eggs for the week, get them in the fridge, usually fill up my entire fridge with eggs and meal prep like containers for Taylor's lunches to take with him. And I change our sheets every single week religiously. I don't, like I said, I am a horrible sleeper, and changing my sheets and like refreshing my pillow every week helps me sleep so much better. I know that sounds silly. If I haven't changed my pillowcase and I'm not like fluffing up my pillow and I don't have the fresh sheets, I'm like, I can't fall asleep. I get uncomfy. Just doesn't feel right. So I religiously change our sheets every single Sunday. But I'm also really bad about doing the rest of our laundry. So I'm not perfect. Just the sheets.
Yeah, I do my laundry whenever my laundry basket fills up, or I'm like, oh, dang, I'm out of the clothes that I actually want to wear. I guess it's time to do laundry. There's no day for that. That's just
No,
whenever I can do it.
whenever it starts overflowing and I trip over it, which Taylor's he's really tall, like he's a big person. And so his clothes fill up our laundry hamper really quickly. So we do a lot of laundry, like his work pants, like outside project work pants. Those are really bulky. So we have to run those like by themselves. And it just, the laundry fills up. So we probably do laundry 2 or 3 times a week, but just like a load. I wear like the same
Dang.
clothes like 3 days in a row. So it's usually just his clothes because I'm not leaving my house. On the weekends, I do go through some clothes though because I wear my like jogger pants if we're going to be doing anything in the chicken coops. And I know I'm going to be getting dirty. And I wear them if I'm filming a video because nobody wants to see my butt on the camera in my shorts. At least I don't think so. So I have like specific weekend pants for projects and for filming. And I go through a lot of socks and things like that on weekends.
What about days where, it's raining and maybe what you would ordinarily do would get shifted because it's just not a good day to be outside?
So weekdays are going to look different from weekends, for me at least. I will usually just try and shift around my tasks on my Asana board to anything that needs to be done on the computer or any inside cleaning projects that we're working on. Those get shifted to a rainy day and everything else can move. If we have like a whole rainy week, then we might just have some like rest nights, which is really rare. We don't often not do anything at night, so it's kind of nice when it rains. And then on weekends, I feel like honestly on weekends, if it's a rainy day, I will try and edit a video or something. But usually when it's rainy on a weekend, I lose all motivation. I will do nothing. I will literally sit on the couch, curled up in a blanket, watching movies all day. Like, I will try to get the motivation to do things, but usually it's just a lost cause.
For me, when it's raining, that usually means that I end up in the kitchen cooking things because that's something that I do enjoy doing, but I just don't, it's not usually a priority. And so yeah, I usually end up cooking a couple really good meals, probably preserving some stuff too, or just cleaning in general. I just stay inside. I mean, I'll still have to go outside, rain or shine or sleet or snow, to feed everybody and do the things that I have to do, but any of the optional time definitely gets spent inside if it's inclement weather.
I feel like I tend to cook more when it's rainy too, but it's more enjoyable or more leisurely, I guess. Because, like, I have my specific days that I'm cooking things. On a rainy day that I'm not supposed to be cooking, I might make bread or something instead. I didn't think about that. But yeah, usually I lose my motivation on rainy days. I'm like, okay, outside's taking a break, so am I. Our current routine is something we've really tried to iron out and streamline as much as possible. It's definitely not ideal. I would like to be doing less things at some point, and I'd like to build in more actual rest days and time for like working out and doing things like that, just for my own physical health and my mental health. I feel like I don't have the ability to make time for that right now. This is what works for us right now, and I'm happy to share it. I hope that it inspires somebody else. Maybe it will make people think we're more crazy than they already do.
Yeah. Maybe seeing the reality of the schedule that it takes to balance homesteading and work will dissuade you. But I guess better to know that now than when you get into it. And also, this is the spring/summer-ish schedule, especially being a homesteader, that looks very different in this season versus, fall and winter is vastly different in terms of the projects that we're working on and just where the garden's at and all the other things. So it's not this year round. This is for sure busier than fall and winter, at least for me.
Yeah, so I think that we are probably going to have to do a version of this episode again once it comes to be fall or winter and share our schedules with you guys at that point in time.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of She Said Homestead. We hope you enjoyed our chat. Before we say goodbye, we'd love to hear from you. Send your homesteading stories to us at shesaidhomestead@gmail.com. We can't wait to share them on the air. To stay connected, follow us on Instagram for updates and sneak peeks at what's coming up next.
If you like video podcasts, make sure you subscribe to the She Said Homestead YouTube channel too. We can't thank you enough for being part of the She Said Homestead community. Until next time, happy homesteading.